We love horror movies from the 70s and 80s, and we watch them for 2 days straight, and then we go write a book. Now we're looking back at every title, one at a time, in this podcast that we put out monthly. Once we've had an episode for every movie, it's time to meet up for another Shock Marathon. The red record light is red, which means it's time for another exciting edition of the Shock Marathons podcast, where for the first time, 2 of the 3 hosts are in the same room. Charlie in Farley in Massachusetts, Tom in New York. Hello, Tom.
Hello.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey.
So this is it's a whole new thing going on between the 3 of us, you know. But let's do this. This is called He Knows You're Alone. And does he know you're alone? And does that come into play in the movie?
I don't think that anyone thought about it. It's just that the test audiences kind of like the sound of it. And
Yeah.
like, we're going with it.
He knows you're alone. It should be called the Bride-to-Be Killer, Engagement Murder, something like that, Tom, right?
I guess even that doesn't really hold up the whole time. He strays from his stated objective.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, we'll get there. So, what a start! What a start to a film on Lover's Lane. That's where all great horror movies should start. You got a car parked beneath a willow tree. Some lovers in the back seat. There's a stalker approaching the car. What's that? Asks the girl. The guy doesn't hear anything, but he goes out to see what it is. And she waits in the car, and then she steps out with a flashlight, and she sees the guy strung up in a tree. And I'm having a darn good time, and I'm disappointed when they pull back to reveal we were just watching a movie within a movie, which, I don't know about you, Tom, but I've never been a fan of movies within movies. How about you?
Yeah, it's always a disappointment, especially because in a lot of cases, the movie within a movie is better than the movie you end up seeing.
Yes.
So you're just mad.
I know, because I was loving it. I was really into it, Charlie. Yeah.
It's true, but in this case, at least it was kind of setting the tone of scariness and menace, and then it went to scary right away too, and it didn't bother me as much as others have.
There are much worse examples, like urban legends.
Yeah, or more jokey. You know what? I'd seen this movie before and I forgot.
I
All of a sudden I was
forgot,
like, "Oh,
yeah.
this is a nice scene."
At least they weren't tricking us. Like, what we saw on the screen was only on the screen. Sometimes they'll do it in ways that are not physically possible to explain once they've pulled back. But always, so I'll give them that. And I liked the movie that was on the screen, and I liked how bright it was. It was just a classic scene, just a classic scene in a horror movie,
Yeah.
and I would have been fine to just keep going on that one.
yeah. I thought, oh, that girl's a bride-to-be with the other boyfriend or something.
Yeah, I know.
But no, it was nice.
So, what a shame. But, so then a girl gets up. This is the best. She gets up from the theater, goes to the bathroom, brushes her hair, stops for a moment, Tom.
Yes.
To admire her engagement ring. So subtle, huh?
just in case you didn't notice.
Just let's let the audience know, and let the killer, I guess. Like,
she winks at the cameraman.
Okay, what is going on here? What are we supposed to believe? The murderer only murders brides-to-be, and he's at this movie because he's been following this girl for a while, and he knows she's a bride-to-be. Or he followed her to the bathroom and was peering around and noticed the ring, Charlie?
I don't know. I when she was in the bathroom, is it 100% sure that he was there?
No.
Okay, she heard some noises.
Yeah.
The fact that he could have spotted the ring in the dark theater is kind of a stretch too.
He's hiding.
We might be the first people thinking of.
Yeah,
this
I mean,
question.
I only thought of it right now. Tom, anything?
Yeah, it's very vague.
Okay.
I think it feels random that he didn't seem like he was planning anything to her specifically.
That's the whole point of the movie, and they seem to they either stray from it to start, or or they didn't think it through. But that doesn't mean that I'm not having a darn good time watching her frightened in the bathroom, running out of the bathroom. She goes back to her seat in the theater. The guy sits behind her, and as the woman's murdered on screen, he stabs her through the chair, and then the titles appear over a still of the killer's crazy eyes. How about that, Charlie?
Yeah, it was cool when he sat down and his head was kind of cut off.
Yeah.
They were going from sort of a Michael Myers menace vibe there and some suspense, but it gets a little diffused once they show his face and you realize he's just some old guy. And it feels a little weird. I know this isn't like a mystery slasher movie.
Sure. He kind of reminds you of the model killer in some way. Like something about his eyes. You get that, anyone?
Yeah, maybe.
Tom?
Yeah, a little bit.
That means no. So.
It's funny in this setup here though that if he had been near the bathroom, he could have killed her when she was alone.
Yeah.
Rather, let's wait until you are as not alone as you could ever be in a crowded theater.
So they've gone against the title of the movie. They've gone against the premise of the movie, and they've cheated by pretending that a movie on screen was the movie. All this in the first 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, and the way he kills her, it's almost like he wants to. It's almost like supposed to be a comment on horror movies or something because he kills her while death is happening. Yeah. But that's never picked up again.
So the only thing, if we're gonna make it make sense, the only explanation is. He's been stalked, like he stalks the main character later in the movie. Let's just assume he's been stalking this girl for the past week. And so that's how he knew. Perhaps a bunch of Boy Scouts sang "Here Comes the Bride" while she was walking by him. And then he said, ooh, she's going to be a bride, let me kill her. Did you notice that part, Tom, in the movie?
That did not sink in.
The Boy Scouts. We'll get to
there,
it. We'll get to it. It's coming up real soon. Okay, So then the cops come in. It's Len and Frank, I'm pretty sure, the two cops.
Yep.
And Frank tells Len she was getting married. And Len lights up. He's back. He's giving me a second chance. And Len is just, he is a mess. He is nothing other than a professional revenge seeker, which is one of our favorite Shock characters.
And here, Frank quickly says, "Hey, wait, Len, don't jump to conclusions." But that's the whole reason you told him, is you want him to jump to the conclusion. Why do you call in the guy who is the expert on this type of killer, tell him that it's happening again, and be like, maybe not?
Yeah, he called Len, like, Len has just been, like, drinking in his apartment for the past, like, month, I'm assuming.
Yep.
He gets called in, and then he immediately denies the reason he called him.
But Len is good. So far, when they're on screen, their melodrama and their tough guy cop stuff, I would watch a whole movie with those guys. They are awesome.
I like how they call the girl sweetheart, too, as she's given her testimony as to what happened.
That's right.
Yeah, thanks, sweetheart. So now the killer's on a bus, and he reminisces to the time that he showed up at his ex's house on her wedding day and killed her as she was preparing for the big event. Now, was that Len's fiance who got killed, Tom? Is that what we're to believe?
I think so.
Okay.
That's what I took from it.
Charlie?
Yes.
So that's how it all started. So this killer was jilted, and then the girl moved on, was prepared to marry Len, but the killer killed the fiance. And from that moment forward, he's been on a rampage, just killing any bride-to-be that he happens to pass by. That's what he does. Tom?
Yes, and anyone who might potentially come across his path and get in the way of his plans.
Anyone who gets in the way. Yeah. No reason, though, for him to follow that other girl to the professor's house later in the movie and kill the two of them.
No.
No.
So he's on a bus, and now we meet Amy and her boyfriend. He's leaving town for a bachelor's weekend. He asked her to pick up some furniture for him while he's gone. Which is fantastic.
That was a good character moment, because instantly you don't really like him,
Yeah, nobody likes this guy.
Yeah.
And so that's the moment, as the bus is arriving, some Boy Scouts are coming off the bus, and they start singing "Here Comes the Bride" at the couple. All right, Tom?
Oh, right, okay.
And the killer's also on the bus. He's just sitting there in the bus ready to go to the next stop, except he heard Here Comes the Bride and people talking about how Amy's about to get married. He's like, ooh, I have a reason to get off the bus, and he gets off the bus.
I'm not busy. Might as well.
So he just meanders about until he happens to notice a bride to be in his way.
There's so much going on at that bus stop, right?
Yes.
The bus is arriving. A troop of Boy Scouts is getting off and singing. Apparently, they've been roped into it by
the friend, one of the bachelor party guys,
who is also arriving.
Yeah.
They're loading up their own cars while Amy's saying goodbye, and the killer happens to be getting off and stands.
And there's lots of playful banter between the guys are like planning all the debauchery that they're going to engage in, and the girls are like wondering, how can these guys have fun without us? So
yeah.
Oh, what a fun scene. So we got, luckily we never see the guys again for the most part, which is wonderful. I want nothing to do with those guys. They're no fun. But the ladies are great, and they go to ballet class. They're having a grand old time. So it's Joyce, Nancy, and Amy. And Joyce is having an affair with her philosophy professor. And they see him and with his wife, Tom. Tell us about that. I was like tense. I was honestly like, "Oh God, Joyce, you're horrible. The wife is gonna know what's going on."
Yeah, and the professor tries to play it off like, "Oh wait, what's your name? I forget who you guys are." Like acting like he doesn't know any of them, and the girl has all the power, and they play along.
It's so obvious,
It's pretty tense, that there's something going on.
But I guess it makes for fun viewing, Charlie. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. They're by far the worst part of the movie, though.
Tom, do you have more?
It's just a nice echo to Final Exam too. The
whole movie does, I think.
Yeah.
Just
the young girl and the professor.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
And just the tone and even though this killer has a type of person he likes to kill, it does have a certain randomness to it, like the killer in Final Exam too. Mm-hmm. The one thing this movie lacks is a radish to hold it together, though. I think, Tom.
Yeah, it's not. It never goes quite far enough in any direction. It feels like.
Yeah.
It's trying to take parts of. Obviously, of Halloween and Final Exam. I don't know if the timing works on taking from Final Exam, but it's trying to borrow like successful elements of all types of movies, but it doesn't quite have its own thing enough.
Yeah, it just goes all around. Charlie, did you say you didn't enjoy Joyce? You're anti-Joyce?
A little bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Whenever there's scenes where she's so jokey and so knowing and so, I guess she's pretending that she's so confident in herself and everything. I
liked her over-expressiveness. I thought, I'm like, why not,
Yeah, I liked it with the cops. I liked the other girls. I especially liked the friend Nancy. Mm-hmm. She was very believable to me. But it's just the way it rubbed me. But I love how up until now I'm still pleased with this movie. It's a little bit slow, but I like that, especially if it's Halloween season and I want to watch a casual movie in the background.
Very casual, especially the next few parts. We're just watching the girl
doing errands,
running boring errands. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So she, so she walks by like a TV shop where there's like a camera that are putting the people on the TV screen, and then so she sees herself in the screen and like smiles and walks away, and then immediately the killer's face pops up, so we know that he's following her. Mm-hmm. It's a fun little thing, a little unbelievable, like he had to have been hovering
right behind her.
So close.
Yeah, that's okay though. Yeah, you forgive that.
You totally forgive it. Yeah. I also like prior to that, did you notice a guy was trying to pay the meter but was out of coins or something?
Yeah, he's cursing at the.
Yeah,
That was like an in joke or something, but that might be part of the the glory of this movie is there's a lot of little things that happen and weird things that happen that make it feel like a real small town community.
It's hilarious. Yeah, like he tells the extra, okay, just imagine that you're going to pay the meter, but then you remember you forgot your coins. Good, and go. Yeah.
Yeah, and distract from the lead actress.
Yeah,
but in so doing.
I totally thought it was going to come back to play, but that was it, right, Tom?
Yeah, there's tons of stuff like that. Yeah, it just happens, and then just waiting for it to come around.
Yeah.
Even like the boyfriend at one point, I think he's like on the phone, like calling, and it's just like
he just can't get through, and that's it. Yep, I know.
Yeah.
I guess
so
they just
random.
wanted to remind us that he existed, just briefly. It's funny, yeah. But hey, why not? Why not have that happening? That made that shot a little bit more entertaining, so I'm okay. So then she stops for an ice cream cone. She's sensing that the guy's following her, and she's about to leave, and she gets startled by someone. She thinks it's the killer, but no, it's Marvin. Tom.
Yeah, before we get to Marvin, just the ice cream cone ordering scene is like 2 minutes long.
So much back.
And it could have been 5 seconds, You could have just had her walking out of the store with an ice cream, but she goes in. She's like, I want an ice cream cone. He's like, what kind do you want? It's like, I want, she says the kind. He's like, 1 scoop or 2 scoops? 1 scoop. You want sprinkles or not? You want a sugar cone? It's like the whole process of.
Yeah, that's true.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so much mundane detail. Oh, I love it. That's a good point. Very good point. So, Charlie, tell us about Marvin.
Marvin is an old boyfriend of our main character, Amy.
Yep.
He is a very jokey, seems like a happy, positive guy who happens to work at the morgue and makes many stupid jokes about the morgue, which they're kind of cheesy, but the filmmakers want us to really, really like him. They pour it on thick,
and they did it. They succeed. I'm pro Marvin.
So
he's
okay.
He's no radish, but I like this guy.
Yeah. So yeah, the setup is that Marvin does not want Amy to get married to Phil because he, like everybody, agrees that Phil is a jerk.
Yeah.
So Marvin keeps trying to pester her and win her back.
And Amy is quite receptive to his attempts because Amy's not even so sure about it. So she's like, yeah, I'll hear you out, Marvin. Absolutely. So
yeah,
what do you got, Tom?
I got a Slash Dreams vibe with these two. It was Jenny and Robert, kind of.
Jenny and Robert, or Jenny and Marshall?
And Robert, because
Okay.
Robert, this is like who Robert should have been, But I got that vibe.
It's a fun little. I'm into it. I'm like, come on, Amy, go for Marvin. Go. It's a some good good after school drama. So I love it. Marvin's a fun character, and I like him a lot better than Phil. Everybody does. Phil's a jerk. He's planning to party with girls. When he's out of town, it's terrible. So now, what to do when you're writing a script. You're like, all right, she's got an ice cream. She's walking by the TV shop. How about she goes dress fitting, and we get to watch that. She goes and discusses whether marriage is worth it with the guy who's fitting her, She is really not into it.
A cigar smoking, old, much older, grumpy, but heart of gold kind of guy.
And it's a long scene. We're just hanging out in that... dress.
Like he's making alterations.
Real-time alterations under her arm. And
as she's getting undressed, she thinks someone's outside the changing room, and someone is outside the changing room. It's Marvin, her ex-boyfriend, who pops his head in there, hoping to see her naked. Turns out the dress guy is in on it. Like Marvin gives him like a thanks, Pops, for letting me. You're pointing out which dressing room to creepily sneak into.
Even this old dress shop guy knows who's the better boyfriend for Amy.
Everyone in town. Amy's sister is totally like feeding Marvin with info about where she'll be at what time. Oh, it's awesome. Yeah.
You get more like kind of needless info here when we find out about how the sister of the shop owner's wife has been sick out of town. They talk about that like 2 times. So these little details that are kind of pointless, but also make it feel like a real town and are kind of fun. You know, they went into.
I like it. I want to know.
They could have done that scene, and he never mentioned, like, or maybe his wife was there, or maybe she was out getting her hair done. But no, there's this whole backstory about someone out of town is not feeling well.
I want to know about that. I want to know whether the extra has coins in his pocket. I want to know all this stuff, and they tell us. So it's awesome.
Yep.
So Ralph hangs up the dress, and the killer emerges from the dresses and stabs him with some scissors.
Poetic.
But
sad.
Amy doesn't notice, and she just leaves as the murder is finishing up. And I love, like, later on, the Len the cop is gonna note, like, the certain dress.
That is ridiculous on so many levels. I wasn't sure I wanted to list them all, but before we go there, why does the killer not kill her when he knows that she's technically alone once the shop owner has been killed? He has her in a captive place. Is he waiting to build the suspense?
No, I don't. I think he was finishing up. He was finishing up killing the dress guy, and Amy left just during that time.
He could have killed Amy first, and then...
I guess, Tom, what do you think? He wanted to kill the strong man first before he killed the woman. I don't know, Tom?
Well, I guess that makes sense.
But it's dumb. It's stupid. Like, why how is he even in the dresses? Like, how did he get in there and when?
He's one with weddings. Like, just the whole deal.
And maybe he decided that this guy was a bigger target. He's the whole problem.
So funny.
One thing with Marvin there, though, when he peeks his head on Amy, it's a little bit rude.
It's so rude.
Yeah, but the movie wants us to be on Marvin's side, and he's so goofy that they're like, "Aw, shucks," you know. But it's like, well, that's like illegal, man.
I know. And she's so blasé about it too. She's like, "Oh, Marvin."
She was just wearing unmentionables, and he popped his head in the room.
Then the movie takes this fascinating turn where we go into the church, and the crucifix. She prays before it, you know, this like moment where she's going to be very contemplative and praying. And then she notices blood dripping from the crucifix. Ooh. Turns out, though, it's just a leaky pipe. Rusty water from a leaky pipe. Oh, thank God the priest shows up to explain that. Why, Tom? I guess the answer to that is why not.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well,
maybe somebody was in art school at one point.
Yeah.
Not only is there that happening, there's the explanation of how it happens. He says that there's a rusty pipe, and he can't remember for the life of him to ever call a plumber, and they joke about it, how he can't remember to call a plumber for like 7 years or something. How could you not?
Your crucifix seems to be bleeding. Fix this. This is a major problem. Okay.
Explained away.
So then the priest asks, "Oh, you still having second thoughts?" "More than ever," she says. So that's fun. They chat about it. So then she comes home. She's
I'm sorry, but
let's hear it, yeah.
we love what the other thing the priest has to explain away here.
Tell us.
When Amy walks into, we talked about this in Shock December a bit. When Amy walks into the church, there's a whole bunch of spooky organ music happening up on the upper level. And when Amy is asking, "What's going on in this church? The cross is bleeding, the organ," and he says, "Oh, that's just Mr. Smith, the church cat. He enjoys playing the organ."
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
You remember, Tom?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in the history of weird explanations for stuff, there's cats jumping out of places, but it's like a listenable tune that's being played.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's funny.
I thought I didn't hear that. I thought the killer had killed the organist. I wasn't sure because they kind of like dwell on the organ at the end of that scene too.
No, there's a cat up there jumping around, so they just explain like a false scare, but explained away, not just a false jump scare.
So she comes home and is surprised. All her lady friends are there for a bachelor party. Fun, a lot of fun being had. Joyce has got to go though because she's meeting up with her professor. And they kind of they make sure we know that the wife, Professor, she's like, I could be gone all weekend. And his wife's gone. So that's the movie's way of telling us even when they die, no one's going to know they're dead. You know? So I feel like, because then otherwise it would be like they'd be freaking out because their friend was dead, and there'd be less time for running in the woods with Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is in this movie, folks.
Right around this point, too, they do yet another shot. They've probably done it like maybe 6 or so times by this point, where they show the girls the house where they're having their party, and then the killer is like out there over his shoulder, and it's like, okay, he's there. We know he's there. He's everywhere. He could either kill or not kill anybody he wants at any point, pretty much, in this movie. So it starts to lose its menace a little bit, and I like this movie. Don't get me wrong. It starts to lose its menace a little bit when they show, okay, he's there again, and he's there again.
Yeah, right. And it's a very Halloween kind of shot too.
Yeah, there's tons of Halloween shots.
The worst is the one when she looks out the kitchen window and he's standing by the bushes.
That's like suable offense. Yeah, that's really bad.
That's the worst. So, but after Joyce leaves to meet the professor, we get to check in with the cops, who are just desperate to crack the case. And then they hear about a murder at a bridal shop. Len tells Frank he simply needs to go over there and look into the case. Frank gives him 36 hours to see what he can do. So that means that... So Frank is just calling a different police station, Tom, presumably, and saying, hi... I command you to do no investigation on the murder that you're dealing with until my buddy Len gets there. Is that what happened, Tom?
I was a little confused by that. I think so. I think that's what it is.
Because they're mad.
We gotta act on this. Give me 36 hours.
I love that. That's my favorite part of the movie. I was wondering, what number is he gonna say? I kind of wished it were like, just like 17 hours or something. But
because when Len gets there, they're like, you mean to tell me that we just sat here doing nothing so you could grab a piece of fabric? And he's like, don't worry about it,
Yeah, jurisdiction issue. I don't know the ins and outs of how that works, but I love those two cops.
So Frank gives us some backstory. After Len leaves, some random guy just walks into the room. Yeah.
This is my favorite part. This is it. If you look up exposition in the book, there's a cop that we've never seen before saunters over.
Hey Frank, why don't you tell me about Len?
What's the deal with Len? Oh, this is a long story. Let me tell you. Sit down, and then that is hilarious.
So it turns out Len was gonna marry a woman who was killed a few hours before their wedding by her ex-boyfriend, who is the killer. Since then, he's been tracking the guy with a trail of dead bodies along the way. What a what a premise! I love it. It's delightful.
He's an awful detective, though. I mean, this guy is literally everywhere. You just turn around and he's there.
Yeah, I know.
And he knows who he is. It's not a mystery.
Yeah, because that's a good point.
The motive.
He knows his girlfriend's girlfriend's ex-boyfriend is. You're absolutely man. Oh my god.
Good point.
That's nuts. I never thought of that until just now. Wow. All right, so the professor's chasing. Joyce. All right, Joyce is a little too playful here with the professor.
Yes, it goes on too long.
Joyce, enough! They're so playful, and it's like the two of you are driving me crazy. And so the killer has followed Joyce for no reason. He wants to kill Amy, but he's like, well, I might as well follow Joyce and see where she goes and kill whoever she meets up with. So there's a scene where she's like halfway out the window. Tom, let's hear it.
Maybe he just doesn't like any sort of infidelity.
He's anti-infidelity. I would argue that he doesn't even know potentially that that there's infidelity going on. But I mean it's something. But perhaps
anyway.
Perhaps you might be reaching a little bit there.
Because the dress shop owner, he was
Yeah, you're
devoted
right.
husband.
He was a dress shop owner was devoted husband.
That's true.
So she's halfway out the window, and like he's like coming at this. They're just so playful. It drives me crazy.
Weirdly staged.
And then she like her head falls back for a second, but then goes back in the window just before the killer can slice her neck. So then they finally get up to his bedroom, but the lights go out, and she insists that he checks on that before they engage in any intimate behavior. And she's dead in the bed when he arrives, and then the killer kills him too. And good riddance.
And how about he has no flashlight? This guy, he goes into the basement with a lighter.
Yeah.
Just the whole way. I mean, that I don't know if that's minor quibble or not, but it seemed really unbelievable that he's going around with that.
Yeah, Tom.
And his efforts to fix the problem was like poking the fuse box with like a stick or something. And he like shocked himself.
He's like, enough of that.
He's a horrible man. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it is funny how that is so Final Exam. You know, that whole thing. It's like, wow, right? Really interesting.
You know what Final Exam had too? It felt like a very compact college town. Kind of.
Yeah.
Here, it's like the professor lives within walking distance of the school, and all the girls live within walking distance of the school, and everything's really close, which is nice.
Yeah. All right, so Marvin shows up the next morning with a goldfish. Tom, why don't you tell us why he always brings a goldfish?
I think he promised her every time he came to visit her, he would always give her a goldfish.
Yeah.
And so she has a tank of like 100 goldfish in it.
It's so dumb.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
like
it's very
years
dumb.
ago when they were dating, that I guess that's what happened. Annoying. I want to like Marvin, but it's like, dude, enough with the goldfish. And not to mention, he's there at 7 a.m. He's like, well, you told me to come at 7, and she's like, not in the morning, you idiot.
Yeah.
You have such a good Marvin tolerance, Farley. I appreciate that. I was a little bit like, just slam the door on him. I don't know dorky good-naturedness right now.
So that's when she looks out the kitchen window and sees in a shot directly stolen from Halloween, sees the killer by the bush, and he's gone by the time Marvin gets there. Forgive me, it's an exciting movie, but I'm yawning right now. I'm so sorry. And I wrote in my notes, I'm actually interested in whether Marvin can convince her to call off the wedding. I really am. It's some good.
Yeah, it does feel like an after-school special kind of thing.
In all the best ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to get into this part with Marvin, his last joke here?
Oh, I don't know. Tell us the joke.
Okay, well, I don't know. You remember, Tom. Marvin is talking. The little girl says her stomach really hurts because she ate too much cake last night. And all the girls are a little bit like hungover. So Marvin's all goofy, and he's talking about dissecting a cat while the little sister goes, oh, I don't feel good. And then she runs in the background. You guys remember this a little, right?
No, keep going.
No?
Yeah.
And then Amy is looking all lovey-dovey in the foreground. Remember, like how Marvin has just kind of come over and sort of brightened her day. Well, in the background, the little girl is throwing up in this kitchen sink while the other friend is like patting her head. It's meant to be funny, and Marvin is meant to be so
Likeable,
winning everyone over. But he makes the little girl get sick.
Yeah.
And then there's this romantic foreground bit with throwing up in the back.
I just love the way I miss the way you used to make my sister vomit. Is what she was thinking right there.
Yeah.
And just as an aside, you know that girl, the little girl, is the daughter from Vacation.
Oh
Yes.
wow, I did not know that. Good for her. Good, a lot of big stars in this movie. Tom Hanks and her.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
a couple others too.
let's talk about Len. Len shows up at the bridal shop where, Frank was able to pull enough strings to stop just make all the local cops just stand there and wait for Len, apparently. And he walks in and he immediately just looks at the hand of the corpse and sees the piece of a dress in it. He takes the piece of the dress and matches it with a dress on the rack, and then looks at the name that is attached, that dress is made for, and deduces, well, clearly that's the girl who's being stalked. And how many reasons? there are so many ways that could be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, all of those dresses belong to brides to be.
Yes, and he could have just randomly grabbed any of them
while they're in a struggle.
While he's being killed. It's not like so that is a weak connection right there.
Yeah,
but
that's pretty weak.
It's pretty awesome too.
Yeah.
So Amy and Nancy go for a run with some great electric piano rock music playing right there.
Yeah, and this is our second straight movie with 80s, early 80s, late 70s jogging.
Jogging was big, Tom, in the late 70s into the 80s, and they incorporate. I love when fads are incorporated in our movies, and it's so fun when the jogging scenes are great, huh?
Oh yeah, it must be hard to do that too, to shoot it, to set up for those kind of scenes.
Yeah.
You have to set up quite a few times to get enough footage for a realistic jogging sequence.
Yeah, and they're always jogging a little slower than feels right because for the sake of the cameraman or whatever. So that makes it more fun.
We had it in the pit. We had it in Play Dead just recently.
Yes, I know.
Very similar little light jogging scenes, and everyone at the end always complains about jogging. That's
they all hate it. Yeah.
The little capper, like, oh my god, why did I do this?
So
it's true.
One of the reasons they're there is because Nancy has the hots for Tom Hanks, who runs around there, and then they see Tom Hanks, and so Nancy runs after him, and then Tom Hanks violently trips her as she's running past him. That they treat as if it was just like a funny little playful thing. But I mean, Tom, am I right? That was not playful.
Oh yeah, it's pretty. I mean, she could have gotten hurt. It's pretty serious.
It seemed the best way to meet you, he says. His name is Elliott, and it is. I mean,
it's like a Naked Gun level.
Yes, it really is. Yeah,
pratfall.
Yeah. But it was not intended. I don't know what they were going for. They were going for charming. They often miss the mark when they're going for charming, I guess. You know?
Yeah.
He could have just stumbled into her and bumped her down. It was like almost like a clothesline.
Yes.
Take her out.
So that's cool. They've met each other, and that's beautiful. But we check in with Len, who calls Frank, and I guess Len's plan is to allow Amy to lead him to the killer. So he's gonna let this girl unknowingly be bait. So now, so Tom Hanks joins the ladies at the carnival, and someone mentions being scared of one of the rides, which prompts Hanks to go on a diatribe on fear. I'm most interested in fear, the emotion of fear. For example, why, after seeing Psycho, were so many people afraid to take showers? It fascinates me. People pay to be scared. When you think about it, it's really ridiculous. What a great moment. Oh, I love that.
Enjoy it. Yeah, I mean, that's something that I think we all remembered from the first viewing. And, it's funny, but it also, like, first-year college student might be that full of him or herself and say those things, too.
Yeah.
It's great. And it's a classic moment in a golden age slasher type movie to talk about fear that way, It's
so dumb and wonderfully dumb and memorable. We loved it as soon as we heard it. We're like, ooh. As soon as you could see it was winding up for this big monologue on fear, it's like, oh, this is...
he doesn't let it go. He just keeps pushing and being so rude and forward, but it's pretty great.
Such an idiot, yeah. So Hanks and who's the other girl?
Nancy, I think.
Hanks and Nancy run off to Nancy's place together, where Nancy's like, I don't play games. Come, let's go to your place or something, right?
Yeah.
So she's very forward. Forward women is another thing that we see a lot in these movies, too.
Mm-hmm.
But back at the carnival, Amy's sister convinces her to do the House of Horrors. And while she's in there, she sees the killer. Did she actually see him, Tom, or is she just imagining that one?
I thought she saw him.
Charlie?
It's a little confusing, but
it's up to our interpretation, I think, because it's like in a lot of flash frames, and his face is sort of intercut with a skull.
Yeah.
He can go anywhere. This guy can do anything. So honestly, I don't know. He could have been in there. But
I definitely don't know what they were going for. I have no idea what they were going for. So it's
yeah, it comes right on the heels of this big talk about hallucination and fear and stuff and like psychology stuff. So,
but there's no reason, given his abilities throughout the movie, to be. I mean, he was in the
dresses.
In the dresses. If he can be in the dresses and no one can notice him going there, then he could totally get into the House of Horrors. But why didn't he kill her?
That's the question. Over and over again.
All right. So this is the moment we mentioned where Phil calls from the bachelor party. Amy isn't home. So he goes back to his wild party. Just checking in.
But you guys didn't you appreciate how that was filmed?
Tell me why.
So there's a fireplace going. Phil is there with like a can of beer or something and the phone.
And a lot of voices and
all off camera. They didn't have one other actor there, not even some feet in the background like of the crew. Hey Phil, get over here, man. Wild party. And some girl's like, oh Phil, come over here.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there like pretending that he's half hearing them, and then that is awesome. The whole scene was done with they had one guy and it's one shot.
Good for them, but if they were the pit, think of the phone call in the pit in the college dorm room, you know?
Yeah, that's better.
They bothered to fill that hallway with college excitement, and the makers of the pit would have bothered to show that bachelor party. So.
Yeah, that would have been better, but it's just an interesting...
For low budgetness, it's fun. You got to give them credit. They were doing the best they could with what they had, you know? So I like that. So it's fun. We get to check in with Phil. That's the last we see of him.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Amy goes to drop off her sister at a party. On the way back, she's being followed, but she's being followed by Len, Tom?
Oh, before you get to that, I just wanted to say the only reason to show that Phil shot is to make it explicitly clear that he is not the killer. It's amazing. Like we said before, like they go out of their way to like diffuse red herrings all over the place.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a very good point. I didn't think of that, and it seemed completely unnecessary. But that's a fun reason to do it. That's good.
Yeah.
I absolve them for doing that. I'm glad they did that. You know, I'm fine with that.
I don't know how anyone could possibly think that I think Tom's right, but they were really going for lowest common.
But we would have known he wasn't the killer because we've been seeing the killer, right?
Yeah, I know, but maybe they were like, there's one person, some town who's not going to know, who's going to think it's Phil.
It seems it was tacked on, too, you know? Like, after production ended, they're like, somebody was like, I'm not releasing this movie till we see Phil making a phone call. So, back of the house, Nancy's back of the house while Amy's being chased by a car. And I'm pretty sure it's Len that's chasing her, I think.
Yeah.
In back of the house, Nancy disrobes and takes a shower, you know? Just because in a moment of really late nudity, usually you're not going to... If you haven't seen nudity by the hour mark, you're not going to see any. But this shocking late shower scene, similar to The Stepfather, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Yep.
So... But nothing comes of the shower. It's
just a nice shower.
She feels frightened for a moment. Is the extent, of what happened. She could have been making a sandwich, Tom.
And this whole thing, right, is that the what's her name? Her friend is really scared, right? So she's staying with her.
Yeah.
For a couple of days to like help her, and then she leaves.
Right.
Like the whole. It's crazy. Like
Nancy should have gone with Amy to drop the sister off at the party. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna stay with you. Like, okay, see you later. I'll be here showering while you're out in the dark night alone.
She has like a huge station wagon or something. Just get in the car. You'll be back in 8 minutes.
So then Nancy sits back with some headphones on, listening to a record, and the killer shows up and slits her neck. So that's cool, huh, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean...
I'm sorry. Sorry with all the yawning.
They tried to have some suspense there. It was a little bit, drawn out because she's listening to the music and it's in her headphones and it's really... She's kind of zoning out. So all of a sudden, after some build up, she gets her.
The whole movie,
but
the whole movie is just its final exam, just a little bit less good,
Yeah, and yet again, right then, if you're keeping track, you have to think, oh, she wasn't a bride to be.
Yeah, it doesn't fit. Like final exam the killer has no motive, so it doesn't matter. Speaking of keeping track, I'm reminded of the scene in Final Exam where the after he kills someone, the scoreboard changes numbers, which is some of the worst taste ever.
But pretty great, too.
Maybe Final Exam isn't as good as I remember it now that the more I'm thinking about it.
I was just going to say, I think it's better.
We'll find out. We should do that one soon. All right, so Amy gets home, and she discovers Nancy's head in the fish tank. The killer's there. He chases her through the house. She runs to her car. She can't find the keys, and she's having trouble starting the car, which is like, come on, Amy.
Yeah.
There's no reason for this problem. Just start the stupid car. He's trying to stab through the windshield. This guy's nuts, by the way.
Yeah.
So then she drives away feeling safe, but turns out he's on the roof of the car. He's breaking the window. She crashes into a pole. He's thrown off the car, and he chases her to the coroner's office where Marvin works. And he doesn't even believe her at first, it's like, Marvin, come on. Why? She comes in here terrified. He's like, oh, Amy, you're being ridiculous. It's like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Give her a break. So then he he calls the cop. He tells her to call the cops. He goes to check it out, and he grabs a little, what do you call that, a 2x4, or that big thing that he's holding, Charlie?
Just a piece of wood?
Piece of wood.
Mm-hmm.
2x4?
It might have been 2x4,
Tom?
Yeah.
I think a 2x4 is a little bit bigger.
Okay. He picks up a piece of wood, which is fun. Just to imagine Marvin doing anything heroic, to me, feels unlikely. So then we kind of have... then we cut back to Len, the cop, who goes into Amy's house, without any authority, and discovers the head in the fish tank. And then he's informed of the call. He calls in, and he hears that Amy's made a call from the morgue, so he goes there. A lot of convenient moments for Len.
It's a tough effect to pull off on the low budget, but they have a pretty funny head in that fish tank when they show it floating there in close up,
I was happy with it. I didn't mind it. Tom, what were your thoughts on the head?
Yeah, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, it was good. It was hard to pull off, but pretty funny.
So Amy...
Oh, wait, Len's moment with about asking where the morgue is, right?
Tell me.
He gets on the phone and he calls in... I don't know exactly if I'm rephrasing what you said, but he calls it in, and they say, oh, a girl with that name just said at the morgue.
Right.
And then he says, where the heck's the gosh darn morgue? Something that he's really forceful, and the other person on the other end of the line has no idea you're not from this town.
Right.
And they have to tell you. And then he just hangs up the phone and just tries to find it himself, I think, right?
And he does.
Yeah.
Good old Len. So
he's got a little Del Vecchio in him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amy passes the dead body of her friend, perhaps, in the morgue. There's a moment she passes one of the dead bodies, and she stops and looks.
Joyce.
So Joyce's body has been collected.
Yeah.
It's been discovered off camera, and no one's discussed it, and it's already in the morgue.
Yeah, I wonder if Marvin
knows.
He should have, but maybe he was on break and that happened or something.
That's ridiculous, Tom.
Yeah, it doesn't quite fit.
It doesn't even make sense that they'd find it yet, because they went out of their way to establish that she said I might not be back for all weekend, and he's there alone without his wife. There's no reason why they would have been discovered.
Maybe it's not Joyce.
But they dwelled on it.
They dwelled on it, yeah.
Unless the killer delivered it.
Yeah.
Delivered it?
All right.
He was going there anyway.
Yeah.
Is the detective sick at this point too? I feel like he's there's something wrong with him.
There's something wrong with him for sure, but I don't know if it's just the torment of what happened to his bride to be.
It's an unrelated flu symptoms that is just proving that this movie has many little details.
They like that. I think it's purely from the torment, Tom. That's what I say. But hey. So then the killer pops up from among the bodies. She runs down a hallway, pushing a stretcher in front of the door as she goes through it. And
Love that.
And then she stops to relax.
Yeah.
Multiple times she stops to relax after like getting a very short lead on this killer. And like, Amy, keep going.
I wonder how long the killer had to wait on that stretcher with the sheet over him so patiently. Which, like, please, Amy, please walk by me because I really want to like jump up and spook you.
Yeah, I know that it's the same with the wedding dresses. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So she's running away for a while and catching her breath quite a bit, and finally she just cowers in the corner and waits to be killed. But then Len shoots him, and Len yells at her to get out of here. She's too frantic to listen. The killer gets up and stabs Len, and then continues his attack on Amy, who falls as she runs away yet again. She lures him into a room and then locks him in, and then she pauses and relaxes again.
Tired.
But the killer breaks through the window and grabs her, but she stabs his arm to get away. Marvin shows up and does nothing and just runs away with her. They're safe. Big ending. Tom, tell us the big ending. The wedding day. Marvin's wedding day.
I'm having trouble.
It's like an epilogue.
The epilogue.
I finished it late at night.
Tom, we're all tired for this episode. But what happened, Tom, it's a great little way to end it, is Marvin's about to marry Amy. Amy's in her room preparing for the wedding, and then she turns and looks at the camera and says, what's his name? Paul? No. What's her old fiance's name?
Yeah.
Was it Phil? Phil.
Oh, Phil.
She says, "Phil, what are you doing here?" And then Phil murders her, and he's gonna.
Oh, right.
That was cool. You Skype just made you like rap what you just said. It sounded really interesting. But yeah, so it's a cool little twist that now Phil is gonna presumably go on a rampage,
Part 2,
murdering any bride to be that he happens to hear about in his travels.
Yep. Get on some public transport, cheap ticket. Wait for a song.
Wait for a "Here Comes the Bride" or something.
Wedding related tune.
Tom, what are your thoughts on this film?
Yes. It's like what everybody's been saying. It's there's so many great little moments and memorable things, but as a whole, like it never feels like it's trying to be like Halloween sometimes, but it's obviously never like sucking you in like Halloween does. It's trying to be like a bunch of other movies or taking things from other movies, but there's no like center that really keeps you riveted. Which is interesting. Like it is like you said, Charlie, a nice movie to have on, kind of like in the background, and like once you start paying attention, you'll notice some very bizarre and funny things. Yeah. But it just doesn't keep you locked in from start to finish.
Yeah, it's got a nice vibe. I like being in that town. I like the way the characters dress. It's like a comfortable, relaxed group of people. I like Tom Hanks. But the
lead girl's good too.
Lead girl's fine, and she reminds me of the lead girl in Final Exam. It's just Final Exam except a little bit worse.
It's a very comfortable movie. I think they shot it in maybe late fall or something, judging by the trees. But that's when I do a lot of my horror movie watching. So if it's October and I want to have like some big lineup of stuff, this easily would make the cut.
Yeah, absolutely. It was it's fun, it's okay, but I mean it's got so many similarities to Final Exam that if I were to tell anyone, I'd just say, well, just watch Final Exam, because they did it better, and they the hijinks was more fun in Final Exam, and the characters were more developed and whatnot, but and we should note that we stole the concept for one of our movies, Charlie, right?
Yeah, we love the brides to be angle, so it's in Monsters, Marriage, and Murder in Manch Vegas.
Tom, don't you just want to picture the meeting, the writing meeting? Like, I've got it.
I know, brides to be.
be.
Like we're gonna, and this like soundtrack is like is like one or two notes away from Halloween
Yeah.
almost the whole time.
There are so many of these movies that
Yeah.
do that. It's unbelievable.
It's funny. This movie feels a little dated, like for its year, even where Halloween feels ahead of its time.
Oh yeah.
You know, with just
Yeah.
the like getting after school special kind of feel, very
Yeah.
70s kind
Yeah.
of feel, very unfocused.
But it's just good to have on,
But it's
especially
nice.
a late Saturday morning or a early Saturday afternoon. If you have that on, you glance at the TV from time to time, and you're okay. You don't mind so much,
Yeah.
Go
Yeah. It's kind of interesting, a lot of times we talk about like the cover copy on the VHS tapes as being just a total lie
Oh yeah, of
and
course.
and not representing anything accurately. But this one is interesting. It says it takes a unique, original approach to a story, using the most comfortably familiar and friendly places as the settings for its ominous, nerve-wracking plot. And it's kind of true. That's kind of what it does.
It's funny. Usually you get a
very
plot.
comfortable.
Usually you get a plot summary, but that's more of like a review. That's funny. But no, you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. It is comfortable. Everything about the characters, even the characters in the movie within the movie.
Yeah, they make coffee. They go order ice cream.
Yeah,
They go to ballet and stretch
Yeah.
and giggle.
Yeah, and
It's
see-through
a great world.
see-through clothes.
Comfortable clothes.
But I liked the giggling. I liked the even though I was uncomfortable with the professor, I liked the fact that they were so vibrant. They're so full of life. Those ladies. So
Yeah.
it's fun. So it's a pretty good movie. He Knows You're Alone. Why the title just clearly decided upon by someone who hadn't watched the movie or
right. It was one of many. I think I've read that in the distributors were trying to find the title. This was just one of a handful of options.
But it's a great early 80s feel, though.
Yeah, I mean, the golden age of slashers, if you say it's from 74 to 84, roughly, there's not that many movies for that. So each one is really precious.
Precious, yes.
And this is one of them.
All right. Well, I guess we covered it all. You guys feel good?
Yeah, the only thing we didn't say was shock memories, right?
Oh, yeah, shock memories. My only shock memory, I had two. Tom Hanks's diatribe on fear. And I definitely remembered shots of the house from outside, because there's so many of them. Just like sort of, kind of from the killer's point of view, looking in on the house. And everything else just vanished from my memory. And so it was fun to watch it again. Tom?
Yeah, I didn't really remember much at all. It's kind of like one of those movies, though, especially if you're a little tired when you're watching it, it fades away kind of quickly. So
you forget it as you watch it, yeah.
As I didn't really have much. It was kind of like going in with a blank slate, so it was kind of fun.
Yeah, that feeling I had a little bit too, and it was especially nice for the movie within a movie at the beginning.
I didn't know they were going to pull back.
Yeah.
They tricked me.
They tricked me again. It was great. I remembered the Hanks, of course, but I remembered the cat playing the organ. That's
I missed
stuck
that
with
twice.
me
Two times I missed the cat.
all these years because I've never thought anyone would propose something so preposterous. But it's more of a feel movie. I want to have a Reese's Pieces on October 24th in a dish with a glass of milk and just have this movie on VHS.
Yep.
And it's like, wow, I give them much credit for shooting outdoors a lot.
Yep.
Beautiful cinematography. All the casting is great. The characters look great. Like Carly
it's
said.
very professionally filmed.
Yeah, but
It
not
looks
too
darn good.
glossy. It's
not
just
too glossy. Yeah, perfectly.
comfortable and wonderful movie.
Tom, I watched it on Amazon on demand. It looked beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, highly recommended. Rent it for $4.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, it feels like just they didn't have the strongest writer. A lot of the other technical pieces are there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, for Tom and Charlie, this is Farley saying good night. We'll see you next month on the Shock Marathons podcast.